I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
Hello, guys. This is Keys to the Truth. Hope you guys are doing really well. So, in this video, we have the question of why does hot air rise? And also, why do helium balloons rise? Why do balloons lift up? Why does hot air go up? So, let's get to it. One very simple trick that I'm showing here is to get some perspective. That is to say, to get a different perspective than that which you usually have, than your default perspective. Because otherwise, we get what is called shop blindness. When you're in a workshop for a long period of time, or your room, your office, wherever you go, you stop seeing certain things as out of the ordinary or extraordinary, and you start seeing them as normal or natural. And remember, I keep telling you, there's nothing that is natural. There's no such thing as natural. That's the worst misnomer ever. Everything is absolutely divine and supernatural. God-given, God-made, God-created. The trick is, how do we start seeing that? Well, here's such an example. And you might say, well, that's a trivial question. Hot air rises because of density. As the air is getting hotter, it's becoming less dense and it's rising up. I would say that's wrong. But before that, I would tell you to question everything. And then you'll find out if it's wrong or not. So we're told this almost like a mantra since we're very young, since we have our early days of cognition and understanding. It's like hammered into your mind that, warm water rises above cold water. And you're shown these experiments in school, in high school, elementary. Like, why do they care about showing us that, right? They lie about everything. So that's also one key to the truth. Remember, there's positive keys and there's negative keys, which help us find our way, our bearings towards the truth. So question everything, especially the things that have been taught to you at an early age by the indoctrination system. Okay? So, and going back to that intro, I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I do. We know that movie has a lot of information, a lot of occult information. They're not necessarily saying that in a positive way. They're meaning that more in a negative way. Like they're wanting people to see a world without God, which is pretty much where we are. So mission accomplished in the negative sense. Now, what's our mission? Our mission is to unwind from that, dispel all that, get out from under the spell and the thrall of the devil and the black magic, and open ourselves up to the grace of God so that we can perceive Him and see Him. This place, this reality that we live in, is full of God's magic. It's full of real magic, and it runs on magic. It's magical. There's nothing natural about it. There's nothing technological about it. There's nothing scientific about it. It's 100,000% magical and supernatural and godly. So the thing is, how do we get back to that? How do we realize the limitless abundance which God is giving us at every single moment of every single day? You see, that's my point. So that's really more important than this particular piece. But going back to the subject at hand, you see the balloons going up. This is an animation, of course, but I'm showing you also real footage taken from a lot of very nice people here on YouTube. So you see the balloons, and you've had this happen. Everybody's had it happen in their lifetimes. When you're a child, with your child, or with a neighbor, whatever the case may be, balloons go up if they're filled with hot air and or helium, other gases, if you want to call them gases, like hydrogen, etc. They'll go up, okay? But why are they going up? Why is hot air rising? Why is a hot air balloon rising? Why is a helium balloon rising? Why is hot water rising above the cold water, etc., etc., etc.? We're giving this gravity nonsense. I'm not even going to go into gravity because gravity is not a real thing. It's been thoroughly debunked. But, then we're giving a second lie in the onion of lies. We're told that it's due to density. And I would tell you that is not the case either. So in these different frames of references, these different points of view, you can see that the balloons are being repelled almost. Well, not almost. They're evidently being repelled by the plate that we're standing on, what we call Earth. Okay, whatever it is, the plane of reference, dielectric plane of inertia, whatever you want to call it, Earth, the horizon. It's being shut up. It's being shut out, outward, upwards. You see the point of why I'm doing these two frames? Hot air, smoke, helium, they're shooting up and outwards, in a perpendicular direction from the horizon, from the plane. So that's very peculiar. That's very particular. Okay. And, it's not like they know, oh, I'm less dense, and I'm hotter than the colder air, so I'm going to go on top. How would they know where to orient themselves? You see? So it's in absolute terms, but it's also in relative terms to the plane that we're standing on. So that's really important that you notice that. And if you need more time, just go back and rewatch the clips or watch other footage so that you can see this for yourself, and you're like, open your eyes and like watch with newborn eyes. That's why children, and especially young ones, are so important, because they have that freshness and they realize things that we don't realize anymore because we're already brainwashed and deluded. So basically, why I'm sharing this footage with you is to impress the fact on you that hot air is rising, hot water, whatever, helium, etc., is rising because it's being repelled by the ground. Okay, so that's the most important thing. And then let's go to the proofs. All right, guys.
Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
So now, after we get past that initial fact, then of vision that includes the key of your senses, God-given senses, then we go to the explanation, looking for an explanation. So why is that? And we can see, for example, that pyrolytic carbon and also smoke is highly diamagnetic. It's highly, so is hydrogen, so is helium. Hydrogen is actually far more dielectric and diamagnetic than helium. So that's why it's being repelled quick quicker and at a faster rate as a dielectric gas than helium or nitrogen or oxygen, which have different magnetic properties and electrical properties. Helium is more dielectric than regular air. Okay, so it's more diamagnetic and it's being repelled by the ground. That's exactly why helium is rising. It's not that it's rising, it's being repelled away. Okay, and this is all documented. You please look for more evidence. Like I've told you before, all my videos are a starting point. They're not the be all end all of anything. Okay, so helium being a strong diamagnetic, as opposed to, for example, the regular air that's composed of mostly nitrogen and some oxygen, whereas oxygen is highly paramagnetic. So actually the ground, the earth is pulling the oxygen downward, okay? And it's repelling the helium upwards. Why is the earth pulling the oxygen downward? Well, that's where you get into the really interesting stuff, because it's designed that way. So you see, the oxygen, which is not really oxygen, it's salt that's been volatilized, diffused, and energized by the sun. It's coming from the sun and it's coming downward. Okay, so it's a divine cycle, and the earth is pulling the oxygen downward, the salt of the earth downward, just like the Bible says, and the Vedas. The Vedanta has all this. I'm translating it. I'll share with you. It's a very slow process, but doing a literal translation it's mind-blowing, and it goes into detail of how this whole process is working. So sometimes I kind of feel like I'm cheating. Well, I'm not really cheating, but if you have access to these books, and I urge you to look into them, do your own translations, verbatim, literal translations, and then you start looking for the meaning. Because, for example, trying to fit, you can't do a linear translation of Sanskrit into English or any other language. That'd be like trying to fit a spherical, a sphere, a 3D sphere, into a line, a one-dimensional line. It's impossible. So you have to do a complex translation that's quite literal and has like a ton of meanings, because it means. So going back to the subject here, you can see I'm giving you references, okay? References. I'm not just talking hot air, all pun intended. I'm giving you actual references here, okay? And, researchers that know about this stuff, but they're not putting two and two together. So that's what we're doing here. So whenever you heat up any object, a material, a gas, a liquid, a solid, a plasma, whatever the case may be, look here. Oxygen, highly paramagnetic. What did I tell you? Carbon dioxide is diamagnetic. Smoke is diamagnetic. That's why it's rising. Okay? So when you're heating something up, you're also making it more diamagnetic. You're going past the points that have been, this is sampling, has been widely studied. You're going past the points where the crystals in the material are losing their memory or their magnetization. Instead of being attracted, they're being repelled. So, for example, we have this lecture here that I'm sharing with you on both diamagnetism and paramagnetism, which are properties of, guess what? Crystals, crystal fields. Okay? So they'll tell you the truth, and if you can read between the lines, okay? And this is from a department of physics at a university. Okay? So what I'm sharing with you is not mumbo jumbo. It's real, it's the real deal. Okay? So forget all this nonsense about atoms and math. Math can be useful, but it's not like, I'll do math with you all day long, but it's just a form to represent something that is just a shadow of reality. So, that's always a caveat that you have to have with math and statistics, all right? So you have to know what you're looking for, and it's just a description. Like, you can have different descriptions, and it's based on assumptions, all right? So what I'm sharing with you, why I'm sharing this with you, is just to show you that there's actual quantification of this phenomena, and it's not just me, talking nonsense on here and like a bunch of hocus pocus. This is real stuff. Okay, so let's see what else they have for us. You can see different materials, different crystal fields. Okay, it all comes down to the alignment of the crystal fields and the memory that's being induced or reduced from these crystal fields. Okay, that's the basis of matter, of the symmetries, the memories, the alignments of crystals within gases, liquids, plasma, solids, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and they know it. These are crystal fields, and these are different properties of crystals because our universe runs on crystal magic. All right. So magnetism. I've told you before. Please watch my video on what magnetism really is. I have several videos on different subjects. Be sure to check out my playlist. The crystal fields, depending on the relationship between heat, you're going to have a different magnetism or propensity for magnetism, depending on the heat, depending on the pressure, depending on the light. So it's an interplay between 7 divine energies that I've noticed, and it corresponds to the 7 chakras. I'll do the video on that alone, and that's where the rainbow comes from. But let's not get sidetracked. You can read these slides at your own pace when you have more time. Electronic heating capacity. So yeah, you're going to have different materials are going to have different relationships between the vibration and their crystals and their heat properties and their magnetism properties. These are all dimensions of the action within and without the crystals. All right. So this is really interesting stuff. You can dive deeper, on your own time. But you see, like the arrows, you're not going to have arrows in the crystal, but it's just like our human way of trying to, dissect reality or understand reality. And you have different phases, all right, on the different materials where they can go from being very attracted to a magnet, paramagnetic, or even ferromagnetic, and you have these hysteresis curves, which are just showing you the relationship when the material, depending on the electrical fields or the temperature, are going to render different magnetic moments, all right? Different magnetic susceptibilities. And you can look up all these papers, and you have it in gases, you have it in different materials, where it's going from being completely attracted to being completely repelled. So when you're heating up air or you have helium, you're reducing the magnetism, all right? So nitrogen as well. Diamonds are really interesting. Nitrogen is so interesting. The moon's actually made of nitrogen, and I'll show you that with proof and evidence on a different video that I'm going to do here soon. But this is just really, really interesting. The Curie point, like Marie Curie, is a point where in the temperature relationship, the materials undergo a drastic change in their magnetic properties. And every different material is going to have a different Curie moment or Curie point, Curie temperature. So it's important that you know this, and they usually don't teach this to us in grade school or high school or even college, unless you're doing something very specialized. But by the time you're doing something very specialized, you're already so indoctrinated and invested into the system that, your shot blindness, is completely blinded you, plus the arrogance, plus the black magic, and, plus your sinful ways. And when I talk about sinful ways, I'm not dogmatic. What I mean by that is you lower demonic energies, all right? So how come nobody's seeing this? Well, some people have, right? But you can start seeing more of God around you and his ways if you start going for the higher energies, like, That's what the virtues are, the 7 divine virtues, right? Being patient, being slow to anger, being humble. All these things, you have to cultivate them, because that's going to actually change your magnetic composition within you, of your soul and of your cells. That's why do you think they're called cells? Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, because that's kind of a taboo subject. So I might do that on my Patreon. This takes. Oh, whoa, wait! Look, guys, look. This is the proof right here. There's so many videos of this. You can repeat this at home. So what I'm showing you is completely observable, repeatable, measurable, and you can do it anywhere. And it's going to work anywhere. So heating up a magnet, melting a magnet, whatever the case may be, it's going to raise it past that Curie point where it's going to lose the memory. It's going to lose the magnetism. Remember to watch my video on what magnetism really is. It's a type of magic. But so you see how the magnet loses the magnetism? And so that's what's happening when you're heating air, you're heating water, or with helium, which is already demagnetized, magnetic. Okay? It absolutely, completely loses.
Surprised?
Your arrogance blinds you. Your arrogance blinds you.
You must unlearn what you have learned. Much to learn you still have.
So there, folks, we all have a lot to learn, and we're all, guilty of being arrogant, especially specialists, especially PhDs, especially researchers. People that have been through the system are usually more indoctrinated rather than less. You would expect it to be the contrary, but it's not. And you can observe this. So, I'm showing you all these evidence, and you can repeat these. You look for them on your own. Of course, you can say, "Oh, this is staged," or "This is hoax." Well, try it on your own time. By all means, different materials are going to have different, attraction or repulsion to other materials, to other crystals, and also to magnetic and or electric fields. Okay, so we have different magnetic susceptibilities. Like right here, you can see these tables by this wonderful researcher. Very, very smart people. And this one is pretty amazing. You can see the object, oxygen. What was I telling you? It's highly attracted, highly paramagnetic towards the Earth. The nitrogen is slightly repelled, very slightly. But for example, helium and hydrogen, they're going to be very, very strongly repelled. Okay, you can see the flame is being repelled because it's emitting carbon. It's burning carbon, and like that flame and that what was that smoke in the beginning that you saw? That was why smoke shoots up. That's exactly why it shoots up. That's why the flame's going up, because it's going up and away. Have you ever seen a flame going sideways? Well, if there's a breeze, but if there's no breeze, the flame's always going up. And that's also going to tell us, this is an electric field, by the way. This is not a magnetic field. The previous ones were magnetic. This one's electric. So it's also going away from the electric field. And we're both inside both. So I'll show you. Look at that. And this is going to also give us the preface to understanding what fire really is. And I'll do a whole video on that because it's going to be a long video on what fire actually is. But this is the precursor. This is the base knowledge. Look at this table. This is a beautiful table this researcher did. The white ones he hasn't tested, but the other ones you can see which ones are ferromagnetic, highly attracted to a magnet, paramagnetic, strongly, and diamagnetic, highly repelled. But both helium and hydrogen are highly repelled, whereas oxygen is highly attracted. So that's all by design. It's a beautiful.
Light will have a strong tendency to land facing South Pole up, even when released with the North Pole facing up. By the way, through the video, I'll be using red to mark the north pointing pole and blue for the south pointing pole. This drop test doesn't tell us much about direction and strength of the Earth's magnetic field, but it does give us a hint. The compass isn't telling the whole truth about the direction of the magnetic field. The compass is balanced in a way that makes it useful for horizontal navigation. If we want to know more about the vertical direction of the magnetic field, we need something meant for it. Such a vertical compass is known as a dip circle. I don't own one, but I believe a sphere magnet can be used as one too. Let me first mark the poles of this 20mm sphere magnet. Done something smooth and level, it can freely spin around and align with the magnetic field of the Earth. I'll use a mirror placed on top of this old wooden stand. It's all wood with no ferromagnetic metals messing with the magnet. Let me mark the mirror with north and south so you can follow along. The mirror needs to be perfectly level or the magnet will just roll off. I tried with a spirit level without any success. I ended up using something else to level the mirror. Here's a challenge for you. Balance a 50mm bearing ball on a clean mirror. This level of leveling will do. Time for the test. If the magnetic field is horizontal, the magnet should align like this, as a compass needle. But it doesn't. No matter how many times I release it, the magnet ends up with this strong tilt. The North Pole is almost pointing directly down into the mirror. Using a protractor placed parallel with the North-South axis, the inclination looks like... It's a little difficult to tell, maybe somewhere around 70 degrees. Let's try with a bigger 50mm magnet donated by Magnet Portal for my previous video. Not surprisingly, this ends up at the same angle. Still looks like around 70 degrees, though it isn't really easy to tell with precision. It doesn't tell us much about the strength of the magnetic field either. Let's get more scientific and use a lab instrument that can show us the direction and also the strength of the magnetic field with high precision. Not an easy task with a weak field, but this is where the big donation comes in. I'm so lucky that one of my subscribers works at Lakeshore, and their new F71 Tesla meter should meet my crazy needs. Not only does it measure at a very wide range of strengths using just one probe, it does so at 3 axes at the same time. Finally, I can measure in the 3-dimensional world of magnetic fields. Can't wait to see if this works, so here we are in my kitchen again. In the way I'm holding the probe, x-axis is up and down, y-axis is east-west, and z-axis is north-south. Let me find due north with the probe. Watch for the y-axis to go close to 0. That's close enough. The probe is now pointing straight towards north. Notice how strong the vertical x-axis is compared to the horizontal z-axis. A clear sign of the magnetic field being mostly vertical at my place. The z-axis is what a compass follows. The values displayed are the average for the last 200 milliseconds, which isn't useful for this project. Let's choose another averaging window. An average over 10 seconds makes more sense for measuring the Earth's magnetic field. The values are still updated 5 times a second, but will now display the average of 10 seconds back in time. While the values settle in, I can show you some other details. Not all touchscreens are a joy to use, but I do like this one. It's responsive, immediately doing what I want it to do. Here we see the temperature in the probe. It is monitored to make sure the readings are always as precise as possible and don't drift over time with temperature. Nice. Alright, looks like we end up with 18.1 microtesla on the horizontal north-south z-axis, 46.4 microtesla on the vertical up-down x-axis, and a total magnitude of 49.8. I tilt the probe until the x-axis is also close to 0. This is a mountable probe, but I'm lazy and just eyeball it by hand. After some small adjustments, I find the spot. Looks like the probe is following the magnetic field at an angle of 70 degrees, and the overall magnitude is still around 50 microtesla. Awesome. Let me show just how awesome this result is. Here's an official plot of the Earth's magnetic field from December 2014. The inclination where I live, Denmark, more precisely central Jutland, is 70.4-ish degrees. The intensity on the horizontal axis is around 17 microtesla, and on the vertical axis around 47 microtesla. Total intensity is around 50 microtesla. Look at this chart. I did not expect to reach this precision in microteslas with a probe capable of...
So as you can see clearly with any compass, we're inside a magnetic field, but we're also, with that Tesla meter, you can see we're inside an electrical field. So it's a bi-field that we're, and you know, these have been mapped out extensively. Although these maps are distorted, right, and for a reason, to delude us from the real dimensions of the Earth, and also from the fact that we've come to learn that the moon is a mirror image of the Earth, and I'll do a video on the moon, which holds a lot of mysteries. You can see that caution zone right there that is very strong, and you can see that's near the North Pole, what we call the North Pole. There's different nodes. For example, right here we have, if you notice, we have that Bermuda Triangle area. And so the intensity at the north could even be harmful, That's a no-flying zone, by the way. There's no airplanes that are flying around that, even if they could, So we don't know if you could, how far you can get near it or not. So you can see different nodes, different dips in the field, and you can, find these resources for your research purposes as well. And there's also some distortions around the equator. Look at that. That's right there. That's where the Bermuda Triangle is. And if you notice, the calmest beaches are going to be around there. Key West, like I did my video on Key West. Be sure to check it out. And also, like Turks and Caicos is in the Bermuda Triangle. So towards the north, you're going to get some huge waves in the North Sea. Look at that, the picture from the North Pole. And that's where you're going to have your axis mundi, or actually Druva or Yggdrasil, the world tree, the tree of life that gives life, and is actually, you can see it. It's the Milky Way. So, I don't know if you're getting cognitive dissonance, guys, but, I hope you can get past it, okay? And you can become resonant with the truth. And look for the truth inside you and outside of you. And you look for the truth in God. And so we have, we had this army of shills and gatekeepers and, directed opposition that came out, what was it, 2015, with the whole stuff about no space and the globe and all that. I agree with you that there's no space. There's no proof of it. There's no evidence of it. I agree with you on that, it's a flat system. It's a plane. But they gave you a little truth so they could suck you in, or they could suck us in, because they suckered me for a while as well, with this nonsense about density. Okay? So they have this duality, this Hegelian dialectic, where they tell you it's one or the other, right? So the oils rise up because, they're less dense than the water, or they're heavier than the water, or less heavy than the water. And I'm going to tell you that's complete nonsense. It has nothing to do with it. All right? Density, has its place, but it's not the be-all, end-all. All right? And, I can share evidence to that fact with you right here. Oil is more diamagnetic than water. You can look for this. And, it's going to, and that's why precisely the plane's going to shoot it up, and it's going to pull down the water. So they actually use the different magnetic susceptibility of oils and petroleums and different fluids, for different purposes. And this is not known by industry, and this is known by academia, right? So you can actually separate different oils, for example, in oils that have been adulterated, or petroleum spills, and with different magnetic susceptibilities, you can actually separate the liquids, like kerosene, petroleum. You can use maglev, or magnetic levitation, to detect the quality of an oil, if it's a true oil, or if it's been adulterated, if it's with peanut oil as opposed to high quality olive oil as opposed to just water. All right. So even though oil has a water component, it's less attracted. So it's more diamagnetic. So that's why oil is going to go to the top, to the surface. Because otherwise, how would it know to go up? Well, it knows because there's a freaking plane underneath us. That's an electromagnetic induction plane. Okay? So it's generating both an electrical field and a magnetic field. Like you can see with a magnet, with a ball magnet, you can see it on your own. And equations, math, like I told you before, I got math coming out my eyes, You can do math all day long if you want, but I don't want to bore you to death. So that it's just expressing a relationship. You can make it express whatever you want. So again, do not fall for these deceivers, these liars. It's just another step in the onion of lies, to keep you enthralled.
There has been
keep you under the
tremendous
black magic
disinformation.
spell, right? It's all disinformation, agents, right? And they've gotten you to believe this nonsense, right? So give us an example in everyday life we can observe, something that's irrefutable, repeatable, measurable, Clouds. Be sure to watch my video on how clouds float. The density of air is really low. It's about 1 kg per meters cube. The density of water. What are clouds made of? They're made of water. It's like 1,000 times more. Let's say they're made of ice crystals. Then it's 900 times more. Okay? So there's no comparison. Air is much less denser than water.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
She's right, you don't.
Surprised?
Your arrogance blinds you. Your arrogance blinds you.
You must unlearn what you have learned. Much to learn you still have.
You are not in Kansas anymore.
Let's see actual applications. Flying objects, heavier than air.
Electrogravitics. In electrogravitics. In electrogravitics.
There's several actually of these. And I knew all this before I even watched these videos. All right. So these were among the last realizations that I had, or the last pieces of evidence I had in the puzzle. So, I mean, I have a Patreon. It's Keys to the Truth. If you guys want to, help out, it's much appreciated. These videos take, months, weeks of research, and not that the time component alone is it. You could spend your lifetime or several lifetimes, and you wouldn't come to these realizations. So I'm really thankful to the creator for sharing this material with us and sharing these insights. And hopefully you can share it with other people as well, right? And, he's rewarding me in ways that I could have never even imagined. And then that's the thing about life. We learn that there's something very important in the things that we think and the things that we say and the things that we do, for good or for bad, because like bad karma, it can get you like in the glimpse of an eye, like just, faster than you can say karma, you can get God very easily, and the mighty will come down crashing, So, but the opposite holds true in a positive light. Start doing good things, godly things, out of dharma, out of duty to God and to your fellow human beings and to yourself. Good things start happening. So, again, if you can, check out, bookmark my website, keystoTruth.com. Check out my Patreon. If you can support, that's great. If not, at least share the video, watch it, subscribe, thumbs up, all that, so we can get this knowledge out to more people. I'm not going for the 90% sheeple that are completely brain dead and, they're completely gone, but I'm going after that 1% of people that are waking up. So, you and I, we make a difference. We can make a difference by raising our level of consciousness. And you can see this here. This evidence, you look for it. You can actually repeat it by running, a certain configuration, a certain geometry, and a certain electrical field with different conductivities, different materials. These people, homemade, they're lifting things that are much heavier than air, off the ground with no means of propulsion.
In electrogravitics. In electrogravitics. In electrogravitics.
That right there, that's debunking that whole density nonsense, all right? So it's not about density. Planes, the way the reason planes fly is also bogus. I'm going to do a video on that. The reason the why boats float is also bogus. I'm going to do a video on that because I've already proven it to myself. I just need to do the whole video, which is also very time consuming for me because I have very limited, as you can see, editing skills. but it's there. Okay? The information is out there for you to play with it, run with it, and build upon it. Right? So we can build a better tomorrow. We can, keep waking people up, keep waking ourselves up, because, Jagrat is the word for waking up in Sanskrit. And it's the Shiva Sutras say Janam Jagrat. They say knowledge is waking up, but that waking up, it's an infinite tangential curve to the infinite wisdom of the Creator. So knowledge is infinite. You can never have enough knowledge. You're never gonna know everything. And you need to get past that arrogance like ASAP. If you want to know anything, at least. So, enjoy these videos, guys, right here. This is, I love watching this stuff. I spend nights going through, hours and hours of video just to, share the spoils with you guys. And, I hope you like them as much as I do. But, kudos to the inventors and these guys, these engineers that know how to put these things together and have figured this out. It just needs more people to share this information and to actually start building stuff, right? And I'm sharing some posts here that I found on different forums online, and you have the whole ET hoax, and they're coming out with a UFO or UAP hoax. Beware, of that blue beam project. They're probably going to come out with it.
I saw this technology yesterday. You came up on stage and talked about it, and I'm going to be bluntly honest. I thought you were pulling my leg. I couldn't believe this thing you were showing us could actually fly. And tell me what we got going on here. There are no propellers. What's happening here?
That is correct. It's a new concept that we're developing at Underfund Technologies. It's an ion-propelled drone that energizes the air around the drone to generate propulsion downward in order to leave the craft.
I've heard of ionic propulsion used in satellites and deep space probes. I couldn't conceive of the fact it would work in Earth's atmosphere and in Earth's gravity. How are you making that happen?
Yeah, it's definitely a technical challenge. So it uses the existing ions that are in the air, that you got an amount of ions that are there. And by using the laws of attraction and repulsion, it attracts or repels the air in order to project the thrust in the desired way that we want.
Now, how do you do the things that all drones have to do, like control movement in the pitch, roll, and yaw axis? How do you do that?
Well, there's a lot of technologies that go into this. And, I can only give you so much without charging a lot of money. But we use different techniques. One of them is controlling the different quadrants of the craft in order to provide different lift to different sections of the craft. That's to provide left, right, and pitch as well. The yaw is a little more tricky. You have to go into the different levels and generate different levels of ionic thrust just to get the type of flight dynamics that you want to get.
Tell us a little bit about this aircraft that you're using right now. What does it weigh? What payload can carry? How long can it fly? Kind of the basics.
Okay, so we're starting off as a very young startup, correct? So the current craft that we have measures 5 by 5 feet in length and has a height of about 18 inches. All right, it can fly up to 15 minutes, carrying 2 pounds of payload.
For a propeller-driven drone of that size, that's not great. But for something which, near as I can tell, is flying by magic, that's pretty incredible.
Yes, it's definitely a technical challenge. We are, like I said, we're just starting in the development of this journey. The feedback we have received from the industry has been great, because that's a tool that the industry really needs. Is a silent drone that is silent.
No, that's a good point. There are no propellers, so it's quiet when it flies?
It's extremely quiet. So not even my own dog wakes up when I fly next to it. So.
Well, it's extraordinary. I don't think I can say that enough. It's really amazing. So let's please keep in touch as you continue to develop this, because I am fascinated, and if I'm being honest, a little bit smitten. So Thomas, thanks so much for sharing it with us.
All right, thank you.
And from Commercial UA.
Tension, surface area, and all that is enough to support the droplets of mercury, the small droplets. If we add a little bit more, it creates a little puddle, and it still supports it. Now we'll totally saturate it, pouring in 5 pounds, which is 2.2 kilograms, and it should be like pouring milk into a bowl of Rice Krispies, but it doesn't do that. The grains of salt should be floating like corks on the surface of water, but they're being submerged underneath the mercury. It doesn't make any sense. Remember, the density of salt is 1/7 of that of mercury. And now we'll agitate it, and we do get some of the salt granules starting to rise to the surface. But really, with this major difference in density, the mercury should just be flowing to the bottom, and the salt granules should just freely be floating to the surface. But it's just not doing that. It's taken a lot of agitation just to do this. The salt and the mercury never combine together. In fact, everything is still perfectly dry. If you want to have fun,
show this video to your science teacher and see if he or she can explain it. I make videos about mercury, so you but it's also a liquid, and a liquid that's very dense and has a lot of kind of exaggerated properties about it. Metals that we consider dense, like steel and lead, will float on it like a cork. And despite being a liquid, it doesn't really wet anything. A sponge that would normally soak up any other liquid just comes out completely dry. A while back we posted a video where we poured mercury on top of a bed of salt inside of a tall glass. Now we know that salt is much less dense than mercury, and it should have all floated to the surface of the glass immediately, but it didn't do that. Many viewers thought that the salt was being compacted by the heavy mercury. Some people thought because of the shape of the salt was being locked together. And there were a lot of comparisons about if you took a powdered drink mix, put it in the bottom of the glass, and then poured water on top of it. So many people felt that the shape of the glass and the weight of the mercury was compacting the salt. Let's just put a thin layer of salt down this time. And instead of pouring the mercury on top of the salt, we'll just pour a little bit off to the side. And this will make it a little easier to observe. Now, many viewers said I should have put the salt on top of the mercury because the results would have been different. And of course, because the salt is a lot less dense than the mercury, and because of that crazy rounded meniscus of the mercury, a lot of the salt just kind of falls off to the side. It's kind of like balancing a ball on top of another ball. But as you can see, the salt never goes underneath the mercury. Next, we'll carefully lift the corner of this to cause the mercury to start flowing around. You'll see where the salt is thicker, the mercury kind of pushes it out of the way like a snowplow. But you also see the mercury kind of rolling over the top of the salt and leaving a very thin layer behind. Because the surface tension of mercury is so high, you can almost think of it like a skin, like a water balloon rolling over objects. So there's no interlocking of the salt grains, there's no compaction going on here. So the reason why the mercury is able to float on the surface of the salt is because of its high density, its high surface tension, causing it to act like a blanket, and of course the fact that it doesn't even wet the salt. When you're doing an experiment, make sure you understand all.
Make sure you understand too. I'm sure this guy's a lot smarter than I am, but his cognitive dissonance is just through the roof. Because salt is much more paramagnetic than mercury, and that's the reason why that happened. Besides the fact that mercury has a very high electrostatic tension in its surface, electrostatic surface tension, which is, part of the same phenomena. So you can also see it in the flying spiders. You can see it in the flying spiders. They're setting out not a balloon, because that's a misnomer. They're sending out strands of charged silk, and that charged silk is going to fly them up and away from the plate of electromagnetic induction. All right, so we're inside a magnetic and an electric field. So the more something is diamagnetic, the more it's going to be repelled, and also the more it's charged electrically.
But what about spiders? Even though they don't have wings, it turns out that spiders are actually some of nature's best aviators. So how do spiders take to the skies? Lightning storms are one of nature's most powerful displays of Earth's electricity. But even under normal weather conditions, electricity is all around us. The atmosphere holds a positive electric charge, while Earth's surface holds a negative charge. Just like with magnets, similar charges repel away from each other, and opposite charges attract. This interaction creates something called an electric field. The force of this electric field is what allows for some spiders to defy gravity in a remarkable behavior called ballooning. It typically begins at high, pointy areas where the Earth's electric field is the strongest. First, a spider drops an anchor silk to secure itself. Then, it raises its two front legs in the air and uses special fine hairs to sense wind and electrical conditions. Sort of like a built-in weather station. If the conditions are right, the spider then tiptoes on its back legs, raises its abdomen, and releases its silk to the air. The silk strands are charged, which causes them to repel away from each other rather than tangling. This form of static electricity is just like what happens to your hair after rubbing it with a balloon. Now, ready to set sail, the spider breaks off its anchor line and lifts into the air using the force it gains from the electric field and wind. Once airborne, spiders likely use their legs to balance or control speed during their dangerous journey. Most of these trips are short, but some can last for thousands of miles, drifting along with wherever the breeze takes them. There is still a lot to learn about why certain species of spiders take to the skies, and scientists are still gathering clues about how spiders use electricity to perform this gravity-defying feat. What other shocking secrets could these spiders still reveal?
So that was pretty amazing that they were saying the truth for once. National Geographic, a bunch of liars. But You know, they're saying it right there, right? But people are just so brainwashed these days that, you know, even if they tell you the truth, you're not gonna get it. And all this stuff has been thoroughly researched, and we didn't come up with it. Not in the 18th or 17th century, 19th century, as they would have you believe. 20th century nonsense. All this was dug up from the ancient Vedic texts that they, you know, plagiarized and plundered and stole from India. And I'm not an Indian. I'm not an apologist for India or anything like that. I just call them like the things like they are. I call them like I see them. Right? Lenz's law, Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, and that's exactly what's causing objects to rise and fall. Right? And you know, all the plasma field research. I mean, look up all that stuff. What I'm showing you right here. You know, look it up on your own time. Read through it, and you know, if you're an engineer, if you're engineering inclined, if you're a builder, if you're a thinker, I mean, great. You know, great. So you can absolutely, you know, build some stuff off of this triboelectric effect. I wouldn't say you try to like monetize it. I would say try to use it, you know, and distribute the information. Because if we start combining this with some of the, you know, other properties of crystals, we can do some amazing things. Triboelectric effect, which is static electricity, and you know, solid state physics, where you're getting more and deeper into crystal magic, and spintronics. I'm going to do videos on all that, where you can have almost, you know, pretty much limitless energy from different types of crystal configurations. And so if you can combine that with all of this, then you have what you call what they're trying to do with the UAPs and the UFOs, which are man-made Bimanas. And they got all those blueprints, all that information also from the ancient Vedic texts that are found not just in India, I mean throughout the world. That's pretty much why they did, you know, all the cover-ups in Syria and Egypt and Iraq and Iran. And I don't want to get into all that stuff, but that's the real reason why they did it. And they probably dug up some artifacts and of course texts, you know, and that's where they got all this knowledge from, ancient knowledge that they knew from the other documents that they have at the Vatican library and stuff like that. They knew that it was around. They didn't have everything, but they've been slowly gathering more intel from our past, because we used to be a super advanced civilization. We didn't start out as monkeys. Evolution and all that, it's just nonsense. I'm not gonna go into that because it's like a prereq to watch my videos. Like you gotta start somewhere, and if you haven't, go do your proper research. Okay, so you can see here, guys, that this is like pretty solid stuff that has a lot of quantitative research behind it, and so these are all, you know, factual things. So when they tell you, oh, what does your cell phone run on? You don't like technology? You don't like science? What does your car run on? Well, it doesn't run on the stuff that they tell you. It runs on crystal magic. Okay, what is electricity? I'll do a video on that as well. Let's do one subject at a time here because they're pretty long as they are. All right, what's magnetism? I've already shown you. How do clouds float? It's related to this. It's the same explanation. Be sure to watch that video, how clouds float, how barometers work, how air works, how air currents work. I'll tell you that as well. How do ocean currents work? It's all related. There's also a hydraulic system, electrical system inside of the earth that's pumping fresh water, and it creates the rivers, and then they flow to the ocean. So everything is just, you know, it's mind-boggling when you start connecting the dots, and that's what they don't want you to do, because, you know, then your level of consciousness starts rising above the stupidity that we're mired in, and then day in and day out, you know, worshiping a piece of paper, money. I'll do a video on what money is. It's a spell. You know, that's the long and short of it. It's a spell. A piece of paper, you can call it a piece of paper, you can call it a piece of silver. Well, silver has actually some properties, pretty unique properties. So does gold. So do diamonds. Look, you've tried it with balloons and static electricity all your life. So we know these things are real. We just have to like wake up and put two and two together, and go back to a higher state of consciousness. Just like Christ tells us, love one another like I've loved you. Love each other. Love is the answer. Love protects. Love builds. Love creates. And do away with all the
Watch me now.
the contrary stuff, the corruption.
It's easier than pie.
He can fly! He can fly! He flew!
Now you try.
I'll think of a mermaid lagoon. Underneath a magic moon. I'll think I'm in a pirate's cave.
I think I'll be an engine brain.
Now everybody try. 1, 2, 3.
We can fly! We can fly! We can fly!
This won't do. What's the matter with you? All it takes is faith and trust. Oh, and something I forgot. Dust.
Dust?
Dust?
Yup. Just a little bit of pixie dust. Now, think of the happiest things. It's the same as having wings.
Let's all try it just once more. Look, we're rising off the floor.
Jiminy.
Oh, my. We can fly.
You can fly.
We can fly.
Come on, everybody. Here we go. Up to Neverland.
Think of a wonderful thought, any merry little thought. Think of Christmas, think of snow, think of sleigh bells, off you go like reindeer in the sky. You can fly, you can fly, you can fly.
Think of the happiest things, it's the same as having wings.
Take the path that moonbeams make.
If the moon is still awake, you'll see him wink his eye.
You can fly, you can fly, you can fly. Up you go with a high and hold to the stars beyond the blue. There's a Neverland waiting for you, where all your happy dreams come true. Every dream that you dream will come true.
Come on, Santa.
When there's a smile in your heart, there's no better time to start. Think of all the joy you'll find
when you leave the world behind
and bid your cares goodbye. You can fly, you can fly, you can fly, you can fly, you can fly.
So you can see all that is loaded with secret information, but there's also scriptural evidence in the Bible, in the Vimānika or Vimana Shastra and the Yoga Sutras of actual humans flying. Yes, you heard me say that correctly, but do not try this at home. Do not try to fly out your window. You're going to die. All right? So I'm going to repeat myself. You and I right now cannot fly unaided without machines, but there is scriptural evidence that humans were at one point capable of flight, and not just hovering, not just levitation, which is also real. People could fly without any mechanical contrivances in the first Yuga, in Satya Yuga, Krita Yuga, they call it, or Satya Yuga, the age of truth, when Yeshua or Christ, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, like people know him, in his first incarnation as Shiva, was living here among the living and teaching people about the Godhead, about the Father, about the right way to live your life, and they could all fly really fast. But they also have all their superpowers because to be able to, it's one thing to levitate, but it's another thing to accelerate, and then you also are going to need some other superpowers to be able to withstand the journey. Like your body has to be a lot stronger to withstand the landing and the takeoff. You also have to be able to breathe, so your breathing is going to have to change. Your body has to be highly electrified and demagnetized. And I don't think anybody could survive that right now in our present age of Kali Yuga. I mean, it's named Kali after the freaking devil. So, I mean, it's that bad. All right. So, it seems like it's coming to an end and things are pointing that direction. But so the scriptures mention, right, that this was possible. And we've all dreamt of flying at one point in time. Every single human, even in villages, even in like the bush, when people get asked, you can look for video on this or not. I haven't asked every single person alive, right? But most people that I've talked to, they've all dreamt of flying unaided without machines at some point in time. And that's what, like, part of our collective consciousness, collective soul that's telling us. Just like the tree of life, okay? So this text is really, really interesting. This is one of the texts, and I'm surprised it made it out to the public, because these are the types of texts that the elite demon worshippers, scum, they take to heart, and they go and start building the stuff that they say on here, right? And it is saying that there's also these types of Vimana or UAPs or UFOs in Kali Yuga right now, and there's 25, it says. But they're all built out of Raja Loha, which is a type of metal. In the previous ages, they were made from superior materials. But right now, the only materials available for a Vimana type flying craft are some certain type of highly advanced metals. And this document tells you how to make them. That's why I'm so impressed that it made it out. And the Yoga Sutras also says this translation's not mine. So mine, I'm sure it could be better, but at least it's telling you that you can levitate and you can walk on water. It can also tells you how you can, travel through air or space or akasha, which is, that which is not, which is space, like empty space. And we've, just like with the tree of life, guys, it's part of our collective subconscious, probably because it's true, and it was true at some point in time, just like the tree of life.
you reap is what you sow.